Okay, folks, Captain Paul here, week 78. Get back into my routine here. Anyway, this week I want to talk about what went good and what went bad on Snapdragon. Anybody that didn't watch last week's video, we talked about the actual trip of moving the boat. Was a 58-foot Hatteras, and we moved it from New Rochelle, New York, to Daytona Beach, Florida, and the trip was a success, and we got it done. And today we're going to talk about the good and the bad and what happened out there, break it down a little bit more. I think, in life in general, I think one of the greatest things, like this was probably one of the most challenging trips of my career. And you work your whole life to get involved and get into situations like this. And you had to really sometimes on this particular adventure is think outside the box a little bit here and there, and it really, it took it all home. It took a team of four of us. We had the owner, which was Carl. Carl is one of those individuals that you're very, very lucky in life to get to meet somebody with that type of character, commitment, and just uh, uh, the guy who lives life like that and has that kind of mentality. He owns a real estate company in Oklahoma, and just at a very young age he lost one of his eyes, so he only sees out of one eye. He looked up in the air, an arrow came down and took out his one of his eyes, and then he almost died of COVID during all that. He actually went into a coma for 60 days. And he just has a different perspective of life, from a very young age. You pull an arrow out of your eye, and then, and everybody tells Carl that you can't do it like this, or we're going in the wrong direction. But to Carl, he never goes in the wrong direction. He goes in his direction, and for him, it's the right direction. Because we kept telling him 100 times, not 100 times, but we kept telling him, you're taking your boat from an un-hurricane place to a hurricane place, but you can still get hurricanes in New York. And you're like we told him you should go up through the river system, come back down for what he's planning to do with the boat, which is take it over to Oklahoma. But several times he said, "This is what I want to do. This is my boat, and this is the direction I want to go." So once we got past that and just started accepting that this boat's going to Daytona Beach, Florida, and then I was going to help captain the boat. That's the reality of what's going on here. And then we had the mentality of that whole spirit of life of never give up and just keep going. Every single day we would get up and just from sun up to sundown, we just kept the boat. Either we were working on projects on the boat to keep it moving, or we were moving the boat, and it was literally from sun up to sundown, and we just kept moving forward. And every day we did the best we could do, and at the end of the day we were able to make it. The first 10 days of the trip, I think we moved like 400 miles. It was heartbreaking. Because we should have been able to complete that entire voyage in about 10 days, because you come out of New Rochelle, New York, go down Hellgate, come out right there in front of the Statue of Liberty, then head down, and then you go past Atlantic City, Cape May, come in at Norfolk. You're in the Intercoastal for about 3 days, come out in Wrightsville, go over to Cape Fear, come out Cape Fear, and then head right down to Daytona Beach, which is about a 30-hour run. So you had about two 30-hour runs and then a 3-day run in between there. So it's literally about an 8-9 day cruise, weather permitting, and because you could duck into certain places and go, but with that kind of draft, it was really kind of difficult. It was a little more challenging in the intercoastal, even with that type of draft, because that boat drafts 5.5 feet. And you would think that's a big deal, but it really is kind of a big deal in some parts of the intercoastal. And like, you can't run that boat in Georgia because it's just too deep. The draft on it's too, when you get to Jekyll Island there's the little thing that you got to go through there, and I don't even think at high tide you can get 5.5 feet out of it. If you can, it's it'd be very, very close. But I wouldn't recommend taking a boat with 5.5 foot draft through that channel right there. And even in that Georgia coast there were some very shallow spots like that, and trying to miss those with a 5.5-foot draft would be very complicated. But anyway, so the good things that I think that went really, really well for Carl on this delivery of Snapdragon is he hired a captain, but the insurance company required him to. I think he got lucky and got the right captain, with the same attitude that they had. Larry and which was his brother, Carl's brother. Him and Carl and Larry had been working on the boat for a while now, and they had come out like 3 or 4 days before us. A big thing for me and Barry, who jumped on the boat with us, we were huge on the fuel polishing. They did have a fuel polishing company come out. They were able to get to 2 tanks. They checked the 2 tanks. And they said those 2 tanks were fine. They couldn't get into the other 2 tanks. So we didn't get the fuel polishing that we wanted to, but we did get the fuel checked. The 2 tanks were good. And for me, it's air and fuel that go into these diesel motors, so I just wanted to make sure, because it's usually the first thing that stops these boats. What I didn't understand is, the complexity of having 4 different electrical systems. We had a 240 volt, a 120 volt, a 32 volt, and a 12 volt, and basically we lost all of our electrical systems were up and running, but we lost the 32 volt, and we never had it working. It was never working properly on the boat, and that's something that could have been caught by the Surveyor. But this is a classic example of a broker and a surveyor that work together to sell boats. They don't care what the issues are with the boats. Even Carl was there with the surveyor the entire time, surveying the boat, but for some reason the boat wasn't checked out exactly 100% properly, and that's why it's so important to use good surveyors, that have SAMs or NAMs certified. That's another lesson Carl learned about all of this, and it was one of the bad things, is that surveyor was not a certified SAMs or NAMs certified. So when he went to go get his insurance, he had to pay more because of that. One of the big learning, I think this whole boat, the learning for me was unbelievable. It's probably one of the greatest adventures of my life, and just thinking outside the box, being able to make that repair. For you guys that didn't see it, show you right here. Like last week, I want to share last week's video with you, because that'll explain the trip to you from New Rochelle to Daytona Beach. And then I'm going to share this video with you, because we had to make a battery. We had to make once we got to Norfolk, Virginia, we had to make a 32 volt system, basically battery system, and make it work to finish this trip or end the trip. That was our 2 options. But at the last minute, somebody came up with a solution, and it actually worked. I got to give credit to Roy there and Steve Garcia. Between the 2 of them, Roy came up with the finding a golf cart battery charger, and then Steve said, "Hey, why don't you just go to Facebook Marketplace?" Because we were just out of ideas. I called all the golf cart places. They were all closing. It's 4th of July weekend. Anyway, the mess. We were either parking the boat for a week, or we were going to keep moving, but we needed 32 volts, and we didn't have it. So we learned after that too. We just shut down all the 32 volt systems that we didn't need, which are basically the biggest systems that we needed was the stabilization, which was just the computer, drew about 5 amps, and then the bilge pumps were the next big things that worked off that 32 volt system. But we also made a repair down there while we were at Atlantic Yacht Basin, and thank God we were able to contact a guy in Miami that helped us with the parts, finding the parts for this Detroit, because we ran into the harmonic balancer came off, and I'll put that video right here. We lost the harmonic balancer. We had to pull into Cape May. That was one of the first things that happened to us. And then after that, he was able to get us the raw water pump, because on the port, I got to think about this for a minute. Yeah, the port engine was leaking from the raw water pump, and that was causing water to come underneath the engine, and then the bilge pumps weren't working, so that's when we know we were losing the 32 volt. And also I think it was affecting our stabilization on the yacht too, because that was tricky to get that system up and running. It was like tap this, hit this, and do that, a couple little tap dances, and like to get that system fired up. And I think it was because maybe the voltage fluctuation was, so once in a while it would get too low, and we were having a hard time getting it fired up. So as we were learning the yacht, that was, just a huge learning curve. I will always now, check, because it's very important that you have alternators that are working along with clean fuel. And after we figured out that we don't have 32 volts on the boat, then things really change. And once we figured out how to fix that system and get it back up and running, we didn't really have any problems. In the first 10 days of that trip, took us, we made like literally about 400 miles of the 1,000 miles we needed to go. It was a little over 1,000 miles. And then the last 5 days of the trip, those were the big days. We were able to make up some time and really get the boat moving, and we really had no issues, like none. We had one issue, and it's the same issue that I had on Southern Estate here. The fresh water pump, the hose clamp came loose, and it knocked the hose off, and we were out of fresh water at one point, and we were trying to figure out all that out. And when we found out the pump was, because this boat carries 2,400 gallons of fuel and 800 gallons of water, so that's a lot of water, man. You can almost go with 4 of us on there. We should be able to do a minimum of 5 days on there, and that's just showering and laundry and anything that we want to do with that kind of water. And we were running out of water, and I'm like, so we opened up the hatch where the fresh water pump was, and sure enough, it was leaking there, and that was causing the bilge pumps to come on and working the 32 volt system. So that was after we figured out how the raw water pump in the main engine, on the port engine, we got that changed out. So now the water in the bilge was coming from the water tank, actually, the fresh water from the water tank. And then it was literally just tightening up a couple hose clamps, and that fixed that problem. So, but I had that same problem on Southern Estate, so it's got a little bit funny. It just shows you just got to go through every hose clamp on the boat and check them as when you buy these boats. I think next week that's what we're going to talk about, like especially because we had a surveyor and a broker that worked together, and they were in the business of selling boats. They weren't in the business of telling you what's wrong with the boat. And I think there's a lot of that out there, and you got to be careful with that, because when you get into a situation like that, you don't really know what's wrong with the boat until you get out there and start testing it. And that's basically what happened with us. And it was good and bad, because it was, like I said in the beginning here, it's very challenging, and it was a lot of fun, actually. I actually enjoyed it. A lot of things that I learned about myself is I really do like that pilot house, the 2 opening doors, and being inside that pilot house was just, that's where I did 90% of the driving of the boat, and I was just at home in that pilot house. It's where I want to be. I docked the boat one time from the upstairs driving position, and that was it. But Carl did most of the docking. I did all the nighttime docking and all the tricky docking. And you got to see that one docking that I did over there in Cape May. I love it when the guy, some of these guys leave the comment, it didn't look rough, or it didn't look like the wind was blowing. But trying to turn an 80,000 pound 65-foot boat in a 60-foot area, there is some skill involved in that. It's not all just luck. And you can't fake your way through that. There's no way. Anyway, but that comes after thousands and thousands of dockings. But, the good and bad is that Carl, recognizing he needed help, he hired help. He got the right help on the boat. And then, the bad was, when he purchased the boat, getting involved with that type of broker and that type of surveyor, you say what you want to say, but at the end of the day, Carl was ready to buy a boat, and he bought it. And, and then we learned as we went along what the boat required and what it did to keep it going. and the testament of never giving up and just keeping the boat moving forward from sunrise to sunset. That's basically what we did. And and just having that attitude of never give up. And you guys got to do the same thing. If you're going to buy one of these boats, whether you're getting ready for America's Great Loop, getting ready for the Bahamas, getting ready to live aboard, do you want it a running boat or a non-running boat? That's all up to you, and you've got to make that determination. But I like to keep a boat that is in running order. I'll share this video with you because I just did a front main seal on Southern Estate here on the starboard engine, and a complete service job, a DIY service job on Southern Estate. So right now, every fuel filter, every oil filter, all the oil change, generator, both engines. This boat is 100% zero timed on all the maintenance that needs to be done right now. And that's the way I like to keep my boat. I like to keep it in running order so that I can just turn the key and take off at any time. And I have not done that since we got back from the Bahamas. So this is like it's 2024 maintenance. Like I said, I'll share that video with you guys, and anybody who wants to watch it can watch that. Anyway, I want to say thank you guys so much. I do appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. The channel doesn't work without all the love and support, and especially when we get out here, because it takes, I think, thinking outside the box, and we're not thinking clearly, or we're not thinking this way. So having you guys out there, leaving your comments, calling me personally, saying, hey, this sounds like a good idea, and this is what this is an approach that I would make. So it just gets you thinking it gets you in a different mindset and different thinking. Anyway, I appreciate all the support on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. I think next week we're going to talk about, get back into the market a little bit, because with all this political stuff going on, I think the market is going to change. I think some people will panic sell, and I think there is going to be some bargains that we're going to see out here. You can actually see the prices starting to come down of these boats a little bit, but I don't think they're going to drop to where you might think they're going to drop. But you can always get that little bit of a deal, or find that guy that panic sells because he's a little nervous about what's going on in the economy and stuff like that. Anyway, peace out. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.